Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
Or even when I'm traveling, I'll see something. I'll see like an old framed image of something, and I think there's something really inspiring about that. I don't know what it is, and I'll buy it and bring it back to my studio. And then it's funny, like a year later or something will come up where I think, oh my God, it's like that framed picture that I bought. And I look at it and it's almost like everything that's inspiring at some point comes back.
Are you a teen or adult looking for more happiness in every day and ways to connect with people in your life?
You've come to the right place. Hack Your Happiness is a podcast designed to bring you the behind the scenes of what brings iconic individuals happiness, plus their life hacks.
I'm Mercedes.
And I'm Anastasia.
And we're the two teens behind Small Bits of Happiness.
We're interviewing Olympic athletes, entrepreneurs, celebrities, and more.
Throughout all of our episodes, you'll find great conversations, hacks that you can take away and try in your life, inspiration, as well as unique and surprising insights. Today, we are speaking with Megan Hess.
I mean, essentially, I was a kid who loved to draw, but I had no idea that you could illustrate for a living or there was any kind of career path.
Megan is an iconic illustrator. In fact, Megan has created portraits for Nicole Kidman, Michelle Obama, and Gwyneth Paltrow.
How do you see the role of fashion illustration evolving with the emergence of AI?
I was really scared of AI. It wasn't something that I was excited to use in my work.
How to embrace our own creative voices.
You know, don't look at anything as rejection anymore, which is, it's all a mindset. I literally look at...
Megan is one of the world's most sought-after fashion illustrators with a client list that includes Dior, Vanity Fair, Tiffany Co, and countless other designer brands.
Welcome to Hack Your Happiness. Welcome, Megan.
Oh, what an intro. Thank you. No, I'm very, very happy to be here talking to you today.
Oh my gosh, we are so honored and excited to have you on today. You are an extremely talented and iconic illustrator. But take us back to the beginning. How did your journey start?
Oh, I always try and do this in the short version because I start spiraling into long detached stories. So I'll try and do this concise. I mean, essentially, I was a kid who loved to draw, but I had no idea that you could illustrate for a living or there was any kind of career path in something like that. So when I finished high school, I studied graphic design because it never felt like it was the exact thing for me, but it felt like, okay, it's something sort of artistic that I will get paid for. And so so I went into that. And then once I got into graphic design, I was very much the visual side of things. And that sort of led me into doing art direction. And art direction is a great career and it's something that I did really enjoy. So I worked in a few different agencies doing art direction. I still, like, deep down wanted to draw things, and I still felt like, oh, now I'm an art director, which is a really great job. I should just be happy with that. But I still felt like I really want to illustrate. And so I moved to London. So right now I'm in Australia, but I moved to London. And I worked in a lot of different creative roles as an art director. And a lot of that job involved hiring photographers, models, illustrators. And so I got to the point where I would say to the creative director at the agency, so this next project that we've all decided would be really great to be illustrated, instead of hiring an illustrator, what if I illustrated it? And so this was always a bit strange. Creative directors were kind of like, no, we'll hire someone to do that. You keep art directing. But eventually they let me do it. And I knew then once I started to illustrate on some projects that was what I really loved doing. So I kept my art direction job and on the side built up illustration clients and projects. It took like about a year, and then I finally got to the stage where I had enough. I was exhausted, but I had enough illustration work that I could stop being an art director and I could just full-time go into that.
That's amazing.
I love that.
I think that it's just such an amazing representation of, your journey can take on so many different paths and then lead you to where you genuinely want to be. And I find that so iconic how you start off doing something and then you started narrowing it down, and slowly you just found what you were truly passionate about. And what I really love out of all of that is that there will always be something that you can do that works with your passion, and you can always find that. And as long as you're looking for it, as long as you're looking for those opportunities, it will come to you. And I just think that is so amazing. And your journey, again, so amazing. But throughout this, what do you think has been your most significant challenge, and how did you overcome this challenge?
We just want to quickly say, check out our happiness wellness products designed by us for individuals of all ages to help you bring a small bit of happiness to your home with our tangible tips and tools. Check them out in the show notes.
I think at some point I realized that, because I've been very ambitious with this because I love it, and I really love it. And once I realized that I could actually like have a studio, illustrate for a career, I just was like, right, I'm just going to really focus on this and really make this happen, because this is beyond a dream for me to be able to do something that I really, really love as a job and get paid for it. And so I think in the beginning, I was very much saying yes to everything. And I was potentially rushing always to the next thing. And as soon as this project is finished, then I'll be on to this one, and then I'll be on to that one. And I think the biggest revelation for me has been that you can end up living like that forever and never feel like you arrived anywhere. And so the big, I think, challenge for me has been to, and this will sound kind of strange, but biggest challenge has been to realize that enjoying the little moments, the day-to-day, and the process of it as the exciting part, not just the ending, not just when the book comes out, not just when the event is unveiled, but the process of it is actually the magical part. And once I sort of mind shifted to that, it means that I'm excited every day, even in the bits that are difficult, or even in the bits where I have to make changes to something, or even, the bits where I can't think of an idea. Rather than wanting just to get to that next bit, I'm like, this is amazing that I get to think of an idea for something, that I get to have this process. And, so that I think has been the biggest challenge, to stop racing. I'm still doing a lot, but I've learned to enjoy the process. And that took me years, but I'm there with it.
For sure.
Amazing.
I love that analogy of enjoy the process instead of just, the finish, the ending of the book, enjoy the journey.
And I think that's so important, because it can be so easy, like you just said, to get caught up in that constant go, go, go. Oh, I need to now do this. And now that I've finished that, I have more time to work on that. And of course, it's great to have goals and to have ambitions, but at the same time, balancing that out with, wow, look at what I've just accomplished. Isn't that so cool? It took me all these different stages to get there. And so that's such an important thing to remember and keep in mind, that slowing down and looking back is also just as important. And I really love that mentality. So you have such a beautiful and such a unique way of illustrating that could be almost described as nostalgic in a sense, bringing the viewer back to a time period, as well as conveying a sense of style and the fashion style of that time period. So how did you find your illustration style?
Yeah, this is always an interesting one, and it's one that lots of illustration students always ask me, and it's interesting because in the beginning I just loved drawing, and I think over time my style has just evolved into what it is now, and I hope that in the next 10 years it will evolve again. It's not a conscious thing. It's almost like I think I found at some point a style of drawing that I really enjoyed doing. And it sounds sort of really obvious, but I often if you're an artist, you can paint and draw and do several different kind of things. And I think narrowing it down to one that you enjoy the most was sort of the key for me. And so I draw a lot with, let me grab it, with this is actually my pen. So I do all my black and white line work with this pen and an array of other pens in black. And then I actually do a lot of color and final art on the computer, which sounds very unromantic, but that is how it happens, because a lot of my work ends up getting animated or has to move, so it needs to all be layered and all that side of things. So really my style just came over time, and it just got to a stage where when people would say, why don't you, can you do the project in pencil, or can you do the project in paint? And I was just kind of like, well, no, this is kind of my style. I kind of draw it with this pen, and this is how I like to draw. And I think sticking to that was a really good thing, because it developed my style. And so what I always say to students or anyone who is an artist at the beginning and they're trying to find a style, I literally say, just keep drawing and your style will find you.
Amazing. I love that so much, because it's true. Like when you stick to yourself, eventually you kind of become who you're meant to be.
Exactly.
Find your
It'll
groove.
become more definitive.
Exactly, because it can be so difficult, especially in the world of creativity and the world of art. Everyone has their own perception and everyone has their own take on it, whether it's in drawing or painting or even like music, to not get too caught up in other people and mold too much to their wants and needs is so essential for finding who you are.
And not compromising, because you know who you are, you know how you like to draw and how you like to illustrate, and saying if that doesn't exactly line up, well, then sometimes you just need
and
to
I think
pass.
we can even apply that.
And you'll well, I was going to say too, and you'll never please everybody, and art's so subjective that someone will like your work, someone won't, and so it's almost like if you keep shape-shifting to please everyone, you end up with a style that no one understands. So I think you just go hard on your own style that you like and make that work.
Exactly, and evolve as you go and as you grow.
Yeah.
And so I think we can even apply this to, you know, normal life, not even just in an art sense, but like if you stayed true to who you are and to yourself, eventually you'll attract and find the people who align with your wants and your values.
Exactly, like your creative voice. What do you think your top 3 tips for teens would be for embracing their creative voice, as well as overcoming that self-doubt that can sometimes come with trying to embrace it?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. I talk about this a lot. One of the things that really held me back in the very beginning was the fear of rejection, or the fear of people not liking it, or people thinking that's a stupid idea, or whatever it is. And I honestly, you know, don't look at anything as rejection anymore, which is it's all a mindset. I literally look at getting feedback doesn't mean that you're wrong, and it doesn't mean that person's right. It's just getting ideas and things from other people, but actually taking that on board and not being offended in any way, which is hard sometimes, and then thinking, okay, what do I feel? Where do I want to take this? And what do I, in my gut, feel is the right thing to do? Because I think if you keep bringing it back to that with getting feedback, then you ultimately do what you think. You know what? I listened to that idea. I liked part of it, but it didn't feel quite right. This person suggested that. And look, sometimes you don't need anyone's advice. Sometimes you're just like, I know exactly what I want to do with this thing. I'm just going to do that. And that's great too. I think it's just that having an inner confidence that, okay, I've heard a few different opinions on this, but in my gut, I really feel like this is the direction, and I'm just going to back myself and go in that direction. And I think, you know, not being annoyed by feedback, or, you know, or someone saying to you, do you know what, this is not for us. You're not being offended, but you're thinking, okay, why didn't they like it? Okay, they didn't like it for that reason either. So moving forward, maybe I will tweak it, and maybe some of their ideas were good, or maybe I'll take my exact thing and do it with someone else or whatever. But I think ultimately it's not absorbing it as negativity. And I think so your voice is something that you just keep going back to this, and this will sound really woo-woo maybe, but I often think that when you're conflicted with a thought and advice and different things, like I literally will just sit in a silence, close my eyes and think, okay, deep in my gut, what do I feel about this? Because sometimes we make decisions, I think too, based on, if we don't do it, will we offend this person, or will I lose that job? And so I think there can be outside factors and noise. So I think just going quiet, closing your eyes if you can, when you're alone, and just thinking, what is my gut actually telling me on this? And I think that's how you find your voice in the strongest way.
Absolutely, just kind of having that moment to come back to yourself, refocus on what you truly think and feel, because it's so easy to get caught up in everyone else's thoughts and feelings, and what are they going to say, or what is she going to say or think and do, and realizing that, you know, your creative voice is supposed to attract people who enjoy your art.
Exactly. You can't please everybody, and the best way for you to attract people who you want to attract is just by being true and embracing that creative voice.
But what I think is really wonderful, what you said, and applicable to really everyday life, is that fear of rejection, because I think we all struggle with it regardless of what we're doing and who we are. We all struggle with feeling like somebody might not agree or like what we're saying or doing. And so remembering that, you know, that this is all just kind of going to lead us to who we're meant to be. And like, I love the saying, rejection is redirection, that sense of, you know, that it's going to help you become and go where you're meant to be. And little mistakes, as long as you learn from it, like you said, you don't even see things as rejection anymore, because as long as you learn from it, just analyze the feedback.
Yeah, and I just want to add something. I love how you said that you kind of changed how you absorb things. Like instead of absorbing, criticism as negative, you kind of said, okay, well, what can I learn from this, and made it positive. And I think that's really applicable to like a lot of things in life, because negativity can sometimes be like positivity in disguise, but we just need to look for it and see like the lesson in that, and so that in the end we can take it with us and then become better illustrators or better soccer players or better at whatever we're trying to do.
Exactly. Picking out like the golden little tidbits from people's criticisms and seeing what we can learn. But do you ever, I mean, your artwork is just so stunning. And as a teenager looking at all that you've achieved and all your beautiful work, I wonder, do you ever feel uninspired or need a way to feel and be more creative? And if so, what's your best hack to getting those creative juices flowing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I am someone who is continuously, I feel like I have continuous ideas floating in my mind, which actually can be like, I try and go on a holiday, and I literally always say to myself when I go on a holiday or a vacation, as you would say, I'm not drawing anything for a week. I am just reading a book, and I'm just not thinking of ideas. And literally an hour into the trip on the plane, I've got a thought about something. It's almost like, so I'm someone who has a lot of ideas all the time, and it's just how my mind works. However, if I'm very much under a time pressure, I can really stifle me, and it can make me feel really stressed about coming up with an idea, because suddenly we've got to present something, or a client needs something and they need to know what the idea is. And I always describe, if I can't see it in my mind, I don't want to say it yet, because it may not be it. So what I like to do is I shift where, if I'm in the studio, that's where I am right now. And I've got to, even like come up with the title of my next children's book, and I know what the story is going to be, but I haven't got a title, for example, and I can't think of anything, and I'm about to talk to my publisher. I will just get up and go for a walk. I'll just walk out of my studio, do a lap around the street, and that can just shift my perspective, and suddenly ideas will start to come. But I think it's really key for creatives with ideas to step away from it a bit. So often at the end of the day in my studio, all of the things that I'm working on that I've kind of printed out just in roughs, or I have sketches, and they're laid out on my sideboard, I will turn them all over so they're upside down. And then when I walk in the next morning, I'll return them over, and suddenly I can just see exactly, that is actually finished. This does not look good. Let's start again on that. This is great. This is almost there. This has got way too much stuff in the back. It's almost like I can see it. So I think creatively, it's always good to step back in whatever way that works for you, and then relook at something. Because I think if you're always staring at something, you can't see it anymore.
Oh, that's such a good hack. Yes. Just taking a break. I think sometimes whenever we're trying to solve a problem, we're like, I'm going to sit here until I'm done this project and figure this out.
That never works. Sometimes it works.
For sure. I think that just having that, like taking a step back, taking a walk, just giving your mind like kind of more like room to breathe and room to roam, and so you can like start thinking about other things. I know that I always remember things, like it kind of like goes into like a rabbit hole, and then next thing you know, bam, I remember something, or I have an idea. And you just kind of need to you can't just be sitting down saying, I need to come up with something right now, because you can't
It's too much pressure.
Yeah, your brain doesn't work that way. And I love those tips. But your art style is so distinct, and I'm sure that you look at a lot of other art from other artists and try to get influenced and inspired. But how do you maintain this style of art while still being influenced by the world and other artists around you?
Well, I'm really inspired by so many things, lots of other artists, lots of other things in general. I think that's one of the big things that sort of keeps my work going, is looking at, like everything within not even just an art field, like music, exhibitions, it might be a film. It's just continuously, for me, it's just continuously just being curious and being interested in what other people and other creative things that are doing and happening. And it's interesting because when I'm inspired by it at that moment, I never know where that'll lead. Why am I loving watching that documentary right now? What about that is awesome? And I don't often know in the moment. Or even when I'm traveling, I'll see something. I'll see like an old framed image of something, and I think there's something really inspiring about that. I don't know what it is, and I'll buy it and bring it back to my studio. And then it's funny, like a year later or something will come up where I think, oh my God, it's like that framed picture that I bought. And I look at it, and it's almost like everything that's inspiring at some point comes back and presents itself as to why it was, but often not in the moment. So I love looking at all different artists of all different styles. And, even everything back to really, impressionists, Renaissance, that sort of stuff, through to modern street art and everything, and just appreciating it for what it is, finding inspiration in it, and often not knowing where it'll actually affect my work or what I'm thinking, but somehow it always comes back at some point.
I love that so much, just saying it doesn't even matter if it's, Renaissance or if it's street art, but just seeing something, and if you feel inspired by it, just appreciating it, soaking it up, and saying, I feel inspired by this. And maybe, like, if it's street art, take a picture of it.
I know, I was thinking you could have like a folder on like your
Exactly,
phone and like
or,
have
like,
all your inspirations
Exactly,
in
and just keep it
I
close.
totally have that. That is exactly what I do. I have folders and folders, real folders, and then folders on my phone where I literally will I'm screen grabbing things all the time, and I don't even know why. It'll be a chateau somewhere. I'm like, what? I just love the gates. I don't know, maybe that'll end up in an illustration, or that song is so great. The lyrics of that and making the rhyme of it is something. So like I'll record that. So it's just, and a lot of it you may not even come back to it. But I think if you only ever look at your own work, and often when you're in it, and I'm here every day with my own work, that's not growing as much as seeing other people's things. And
It's so hard to grow when you're in your own little box. Like, as soon as you start looking at other people's boxes and what other people are doing, it's so much easier to say, oh, I can take a little bit of that and then combine it with this and then make it my own. And then all of a sudden you have something incredibly unique, but it's because you combined yourself with these two other pieces. And I just think that, if you see something that kind of ignites that inspiration into you, just taking note of that, maybe taking a picture, or if it's like a picture frame or a picture, you can buy it if it's not too expensive, and just having and being able to reignite that inspiration in you so that you can continue to be creative.
Totally. So we love, Anastasia and I love all of your gorgeous fashion work, but we also are huge fans of your travel books and the Clarice the Mouse series as well. So I'm wondering, what was your inspiration for the travel series and the Clarice series?
Okay, so the travel series, I kind of look at life in two parts for me with my career. Before my career actually really then took off, back to what you asked me earlier, was when I did the cover of Sex and the City. And then I had I worked on some really great luxury projects from that point on, and I had a really great agent in New York. And prior to that, I did a lot of traveling where I literally couldn't afford to do anything. Like, I backpacked through Europe. We couldn't even afford to go in restaurants. It was like, and the interesting thing, and then later now when I went, because of my work, and it's many years later, I stay in lovely places and I can do really nice things. And so I've had the two extreme experiences. And what was really important to me with the travel books was when I traveled, and as someone who was, even though I didn't have any money, I was still wanted to be inspired, and I still wanted to have a really great time in Paris or London. And so there were so many things that I could do in those places that were not crazy expensive. So when I got to the point of, I traveled a lot for work, and I do still travel a lot for work. And so I really wanted to create a book that was on cities that I loved through a fashion eye, for if you were someone that had a really small budget or you have a really great budget. And so that was the inspiration for the books. And I get sent all the time lots of different people who have taken the books and they hold up the illustration to where they are, because there are great restaurants in there that are fantastic. And that's where, Karl Lagerfeld or Coco Chanel would have had coffee and that type of thing, through to here's a takeaway coffee place that's just amazing, and it's the best views of the Eiffel Tower. And so I wanted to create a book that fashion lovers could really enjoy. So I've now done London, Paris, and New York, and I may do a fourth. I'm still trying to figure out if I were to do a fourth one. And I literally list hotels, where to eat, what are the great fashion, where to shop, what are the really interesting places that, like the cooler markets in London that you might not know about, that you could find a bargain, through to Harrods and really, things that you don't need to buy anything, but it's great to see if you're a fashion lover and see the designers in there. So the books are really for people who love traveling and love fashion. So that's the travel books. And then Clarice, I never thought in the very beginning I would do children's books. It was not on my plan at all. And then I had children. And when I had my daughter, and the books at night, some of them were really, about trucks in the dirt. And I thought, I'd love to read her something that is like, I loved Eloise and certain other books that were just a little bit more fun in where they were set and what was happening. And so I had an idea eventually for this little mouse that lives in Paris that has all these adventures, and she wears couture, and she has this enormous heart. And it's honestly become, I think I'm up to book 9 for Clarice now, and that's probably my best-selling books around the world as well. And I just love it. There's something fun about creating this mouse in these little fashions, in the Eiffel Tower and all this stuff. It's just really fun.
Oh my gosh. What I really love about all of your books is that they come from like a place of need. Like you needed some fun travel advice, or you needed a bedtime story for your daughter. And so I really love that. And I wonder, does your daughter ever help you out with any of the Clarice storylines?
She does, actually. She has always been, both my kids, but especially my daughter, they've both been really involved in the books, always with their opinions. Family, they just tell you exactly what they think. But even, like another children's series that I have, which is a new series, which is called the Young Queens Collection. And that's about, original fairy tales of girls, not literal queens, but girls kind of coming into their power. And when her and I were last time I went to Paris for a book signing, I kidnapped my daughter and brought her with me. And we had the best week. And she kind of helped me out with my book signings and all different things. And we had lunch one day, and I said to her, I need to kind of think of what my fourth queen, her story is. And I had an idea for it. And from the beginning of the lunch to the end of the lunch, we had completely plotted out the entire storyline. And she's got really good, even though she's kind of gone into more of a business side of things, her perspective, because she's not directly in it, is, maybe whatever my idea was for how to end it, she was like, I don't know though. I think that the point of the whole book and this story is not that anyone wants, revenge or anything. It's more that they're just living their best life in a way. And I'm like, you're right. That's what the ending needs to be. So her advice is really, really good. I always get her advice on everything.
Oh, I love that. And I love, involving the whole family. And you're right.
So great.
It's the best opinion available.
I know. Whenever I need advice on what I'm wearing or honestly anything, I always ask Mercedes.
Same.
Because we have that kind of relationship where we can kind of be brutally honest with each other without hurting each other's feelings. And that's just the best type of relationship that you can have. And I also was looking at some of the Clarice books, and I love how some of them are teaching lessons through that. And I just think that's so amazing, because there's no better way to learn from a children's book for younger kids, because it's like you're learning from some characters that you love and look up to, and
from a young age.
Makes me so happy. Yeah. This is a little bit of a twist in the conversation, but how do you see the role of fashion illustration evolving with the emergence of AI? And are there any kinds of implications?
Yeah, it's interesting. AI, and I've interviewed several people recently on AI that hasn't come out yet, but because it is something that I was really scared of AI. Because, in that sense that it wasn't something that I was excited to use in my work. And it's also something that I was very worried about being sort of replaced by AI in that kind of world. But I've come to the realization that it's not, AI is not something that is necessarily replacing humans doing everything. And in terms of creativity, a lot of it, with AI is built on, algorithms, which is what makes it work, whereas a lot of creative ideas are really built on human emotion. And so I think that there is definitely an amazing place for AI to use it, in sorting information. And this is just for me personally. I think there are lots of creatives that will completely do everything with AI, and that's nothing wrong with that. For me, it's just using it as a background tool to make almost laborious tasks faster so that I can actually spend more time on creating things. And I think that what I say to creatives too is that you need to understand how to use AI so that you're not in the dark about it or you're not stressed about it. I think if you understand how it can be used and then really look at what you do as a creative, whether it's with your, with what you draw, with what you write, and how do you even more so keep that in your voice and your style so that it doesn't just look like another AI created thing.
For sure. I think that just like firstly being knowledgeable about a subject, I feel like, by just understanding something, there's so much less of fear around it because you actually know what is it capable of. And I think that's also really interesting about how it's just algorithms. And again, art is based off emotion, which is why it's so difficult to replicate or to create something new and unique when it's not based on ideas, it's based on algorithms. And I'm sure that AI is able to create some beautiful art, but just not exactly those pieces that just tug on your heartstrings and make you feel such an emotional connection with.
And what I also really love is the concept of using AI to help you. It's not a replacement, but it's like a tool to help you, in fact, be better at your work and have more time doing what you're truly passionate on rather than having to do all the mundane things that all of us end up having to also take care of. And that's different for everyone. But I love that idea because I think everyone can use that even like in daily life when you're writing things for school or if you're writing a book or anything like that, like using AI to help you with brainstorming or maybe helping you come up with different ideas, sort them, etc. But then still putting in your human touch and your own voice into any creative element is very important.
100%.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. Many teens I know are very passionate about fashion. You have such amazing insight, as you were saying, to different creatives and to people who are in the fashion industry. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to a teen who's interested in potentially entering the fashion industry and how they could get started with that?
Well, I think there's a lot of different avenues that you can do within a fashion industry. And I think sometimes in my experience was especially it's great to just get in there somehow and then discover because sometimes like at one point I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer and I did work experience with an actual fashion designer and realized that, oh my God, it's really hard work. Like making a pattern was not fun for me. Like actually sewing it was was not a skill that I had. And I realized that, I just want to draw it. So that's not a fashion designer. A fashion designer knows how things are made. It's a different thing. So I think getting into it and just dabbling in different areas to see where you really, what you really enjoy. I think getting actual real life experience is key. And a fashion career is not as direct as a lot of other careers, but I think if you can get in, and I always say, and this sounds really basic, but I'm telling you, this is one of the best advice I can give anyone young wanting to get into it. Just put yourself forward to do anything in the beginning, get coffees, help out. And if you arrive on time, you have a really good attitude. I have seen so many people just soar in their careers because people liked working with them. And often, talent will get people to a certain point, but if you're really great to work with and you're not as talented as someone else, they will keep you over a difficult, talented person. So I think which means everyone has the ability to, and you'll learn on the job. So I think, like I was talking to someone the other day who she really wants to be a stylist and she's really struggling to find a path into that. And so I said to her, just contact every stylist that you can, see if you can maybe don't overwhelm them by asking if you can do a year with them. Just say you'd like to do a couple of days. Just start with that. And then on those couple of days, arrive early, just be really willing to do any of the things that they need you to do that may not be that fun, and you may not be actually styling anything just in the beginning. But if that person looks at you and says, thank you, that was really helpful. Can you come back again next week? And then eventually that person is going to be like, okay, we need to put another person on. Can I hire you? And I think this is how I've seen people really, like when I had first studied graphic design, I just worked for free as an intern in ad agencies as an art director. And no one really got me to art direct anything. There was just kind of like, I got everyone's coffee. I was just doing random things. But the benefit of it was that I was sitting in rooms where I watched how everything happened. So I would watch how the creative director would come in to an actual art director and say, right, I need this thing by 9 a.m. tomorrow. I need an idea with 3 concepts. I need you to work with a copywriter. And I'd just be like a sponge absorbing this, thinking, okay, this is how this works. I'd watch her get really stressed. I'd like, oh, do you want to grab you a coffee? And then I sort of watched the process and I learned everything without a lot of pressure because no one was expecting much of me. And then eventually when a role came up for an art director and they were looking to look outside the firm, they were like, what about Megan, who's been interning? And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, what about? And so I think that because they had not seen any greatness from me. I think this is the key, that all they had seen was she's pleasant, she's not difficult, she is really, she's really like showed up and helped out where everyone needed her. And so that as a very, very early step. And I think other careers where, let's say you're going to be an accountant and you've got a degree in that, you don't have to start with a path that I just described. But creative fields where there's no exact path.
Amazing. So yeah, it's just all about kind of getting your foot in the door
Exactly.
and
just
starting.
Exactly. I love that. Just start, just go for it and have a positive attitude. I think having a positive attitude can really help you in so many places, and just being kind and happy to be there can really, really impact how people view you.
And being patient and just trusting the process a little bit, learning from all your surroundings and from the people you're around can truly be so beneficial.
100%. And you have been to so many amazing cities. But what do you think is your number one favorite city to go to?
This is like picking a favorite child. I will always have a very emotional connection to New York, because New York was the sort of first place that my work really took off, and it was, that feeling in my stomach when I landed, and the amazing things that happened for me there. So I've always, to this day, when on a book tour and we do a world tour and we do lots of all of Europe and then we do in America, but then when I land in New York, there's just something about it that I have an amazing feeling. So I'll always feel that way about New York. But I do think if I have to pick one city that's just endlessly inspiring, I mean, it is Paris to me. And I've been to Paris many, many, many times over the years, and it's still just incredibly inspiring and it's one of those cities that literally just walking from your hotel to the Louvre, wherever, there's just even the walk on the way, it's the fashion that you pass, it's the architecture, it's the food, it's the cheese, it's the way of life that they have there, and their culture is just very just always inspiring to me, which is why I set my little mouse stories there, and I've worked with a lot of French brands, and I just love the French way of life and their aesthetic and their culture. So, but there's many places in the world that I'm about to go. Our favorite family holiday place, which I'm about to go back to, is Hawaii. We've been going there for a decade, which is very different to Paris, very different to New York. And there's lots of other cities that I love, but I think New York and Paris are my favorite too.
For sure. I personally love Paris so much because I fully agree with you. I just think it's so inspirational, not even just being outside, because the air is just so amazing, and then all the architecture, and then all the people, and then the food. There is no place that you could go wrong in Paris. I love it so much there.
I agree, and it's so inspiring. We went to Paris last summer, and the inspiration is just endless there.
Yes. Makes me so happy.
Yes, me too.
Me too.
So what is one piece of advice that you wish you could give to your teenage self?
Oh, just to not worry about everything. Honestly, that is the one thing I would have teleported myself back, like Star Wars in a hologram to myself, and I would have said, don't worry about so many things. Just move. And also don't worry about what people think. Oh God, that's the other thing. I think, I've realized years ago that everyone's just got their own worries in their mind, even when you're speaking to them, and they're not even really thinking about you. So don't worry about it. Just go forth. That would have saved a lot of just time time and energy spent on overanalyzing things, overthinking. So funny because I think less now, which it sounds terrible, but it's not. It's let go of things as well. Let go of things easily, and no one cares as much as you think they care. Care about the things that you really do care about. Don't worry about things that are not important. Yeah, but the biggest things that, because I think at some point once I had no fear of really kind of failing, or when I had really failed, and then from that, all really great things came for me, and I had the realization that if I just kept in a very safe lane and never tried anything and never failed, I would never be doing what I'm doing today. I would never have what I have today. And it's all the things that I took a risk on, and often at first failed at it. But then when I failed at it, I was so devastated that I was determined to make it work. And the things that then worked from that are the things that have brought me everything. And so I wish that I had known back then that start failing right away, because you'll be on to what will work even quicker. And the longer that I would have stayed safe in a path, the less traction, the less momentum, the less exciting things would have happened. So yeah, that's what I would have said to myself.
For sure. I think
I probably wouldn't have listened to myself though. What do you know?
It's so funny how much you learn,
I
and like
know.
how much I think sometimes even like I'm like something I would have wanted to tell myself 6 months ago. I'm like, I've learned so much in the past few months even. And so it's
Exactly.
crazy to think back and like everything that you've done, and I really love that. Like failure is really
Yes.
it's
Fail first.
It's not
Yes.
it's exactly it's
And often.
Get it out of the way. Do it now.
It's the learning from it that counts the most. It's not the fact that you fail, it's how you handle and how you react to that
Exactly.
failure.
And if you're able to grow from there, you're able to grow so much better than just, having a fresh idea.
And like,
then you
I
just-
think sometimes we're like walking around on eggshells. We're like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to worry myself. But then you're just going to stay the same for all of time.
Or like,
Exactly.
instead of starting to draw, being like, well, I don't want to draw because what if I'm not good at drawing?
Exactly.
But then-
It's that fear
but
of
then
even
you-
starting.
Exactly. But just getting past that, saying, okay, well, my first drawings aren't going to be very good, but if I keep drawing for even 15 minutes a day, I will get better because I'm practicing. And it's just, again, habit of practicing. What do you do every day that brings you a small bit of happiness? Because I know you're talking about earlier about how noticing those small things in every day really brings you that happiness and that satisfaction.
Oh, like just little things. I mean, for me, I learned years ago, so I meditate every day, more so because I found that it was an amazing way to kind of clear my mind and also give me energy, strangely, because when I say to a lot of people that I meditate, they're always like, oh, to relax. And it's not so much that. I do like a 20-minute meditation in the morning, and it's like one that like my eyes are closed, but I'm awake. It's called TM meditation. It's a whole thing. But it's one that at the end of it, I feel really energized and I feel really clear. And that's something that has given, because there are sometimes with traveling and working and family and everything, there's a lot to fit in. And by introducing meditation into my daily thing, that has given me a huge amount of joy. And then I also just love a really good like wind down at the end of the day. Like I love a hot bubble bath and candles. And I'm a big believer in, when I illustrate, I like to have scented candles and music that I'm enjoying. I like my surroundings to be nice as well. And I believe that all of that feeds into just little moments of joy in the day and in the process. So it's the little things. It's just enjoying a really good coffee, like enjoying my meditation in the morning, going for a walk outside when I can, having a really nice wind down at the end of the day. It's just those, and actually stopping to do that, because I did go for years in the beginning when I was so busy and I had so many things happening. I was just go, go, go mentally all the time. And I've just really learned you can still be excited about it, but just just leave it for the minute and just, do something relaxing.
Making time for what makes you happy is so important.
Exactly.
And I think we often don't remember.
And
or do
making
that.
your environment happy too. I don't think it really matters what you're doing. If you're in an environment where you don't really like what you're doing, you feel stressed out, you need to be able to relax to be able to perform better. I know that I always do so much better if I'm listening to my own music that I just love. I'm able to do so much better by having that kind of good environment, and
Exactly.
I think that's such an
And I
amazing
love the TM morning meditation. We will have to
Right?
look
For
into that some
sure.
more, because that sounds like such a great way to start the day, you know, set that positive tone and intention right from the
Exactly.
get-go.
It's true. And for me, it's not looking at my phone when I first get up. Which is really hard because a lot of my clients and things are overseas. So a lot of them message overnight on WhatsApp and everything. And I've learned that because I would wake up and the second I was up, I would literally have a glass of water and look at my phone. And it's like I think the receptors in your brain are suddenly almost in a fight or flight mode, even if you're excited and happy. And so by not looking at my phone, just by pausing for that 20 minutes, have a glass of water, and I just get cozy and I do the meditation for 20 minutes. And then I get up and whatever I see on my phone, whether it's disastrous or great or exciting, I'm just in a good mindset for it. I'm just prepared for it in a better way. And I feel like the whole day goes better from doing that too.
Oh, what a great little hack to your happiness. I love that. So, do you have a specific motivational quote that you love and that you remember? And if you do, what is the significance of this quote?
Oh, what is it? God, I always get this wrong, but this is my favorite one. Those who failed didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. And I think that is the one that reminds me that there's so many things that you get to a point where you think, you know what, that's not working. I'm going to just pause it. And then the next day you finally get that response that you were waiting for, that actually we love it or we want to go ahead with it. And so I think that has been my mantra, that, if there's something that you really want to do, or for myself that I really want to do, there's really nothing stopping it. It's a matter of process. It doesn't mean that it'll go smoothly at first. It doesn't mean that anyone else will like it, but there will be a way to do it if you really want to do it. And I really believe that at this point. And it kills me because I meet people all the time that are so talented, much more talented than me, and they show me their work or their illustrations, and I couldn't even draw and they've never shown anyone. Or someone who's been working on a book for 10 years and still hasn't shown a publisher. And I think this is, the difference between someone who's published 1 million books and someone who hasn't doesn't mean that the person who's published them are better in any way. It just means that at some point they just were brave to show someone, brave to take feedback, brave to change it, make it work. And then they didn't even need to feel brave anymore because they'd ripped the Band-Aid off almost. So that's what I always say to other people. Success is just a matter of time, may not happen straight away, but don't give up on it.
Exactly. I feel like the most success that I've had, at least, is that after you wait a little bit, it's never going to come to you straight away. It's not just going to say, you're not just going to put yourself out there immediately and all of a sudden you're just showered in success. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. It's like good things come to those who wait. If you keep doing what you love, you keep sending out your book to different publishers, you keep playing soccer, you will get there, you will succeed, even if you're failing.
And there's this saying that I really love. I don't know if it's a saying or whatever. It's like this thing that's like, it takes thousands of hours or it takes years to become an overnight success. And it's like nobody sees all that effort and all that work and all those late nights.
Everybody
early
just
mornings.
sees the one day, the person who becomes super famous.
Or your book is published, or you're at a book signing, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're just such a huge success. It's like, no, it's
spent
constantly
so much
believing
time
in yourself and constantly just realizing, hey, every day I'm just one step, one day closer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you have anything exciting coming up that you would like to share with us? Any goals you've got or events happening, etc.?
Oh, I'm always working on a lot of things to do with projects and clients, fashiony things, which I can never talk about till they actually come out. But in terms of my own work and books and things like that, I'm always working on different projects around that. I have my next big sort of fashion book will come out later this year I think it comes out on the 1st of October, and it's all about fashion in color. So it's like fashion in color, like a journey through every hue. And the entire book is literally through the color wheel, and it sort of delves into everything. And it's also like the emotional connection that we have. So there's all things from, Tiffany Co. When women see that blue box apparently our heart rates just kind of triple, because they get excited about it. So like that color, it's all about the connection of color and fashion, which I find really interesting. And everything from Hermes and their orange, how like iconic that is, through to browns with Louis Vuitton, pink, everything from Barbie to Valentino and red. And so that's what my next sort of big fashion book is, that's coming out in October. And then I have Claris's next big adventure picture book, which will be coming out in September. And she basically, she lives in this house that no one knows she's there except for the cat, Monsieur. So she's like in a little mouse hole, and she lives with the brat and this family. But she's been making all these fashion for all these other animals, and then she realizes that she's running out of room. So Monsieur suggests that she needs to move her atelier to the top of the Eiffel Tower. So that's what that book's all about. And because the last time I was in Paris, I was actually with my family, my husband and kids, and they hadn't been to the top of the Eiffel Tower. So we went to the top of the Eiffel Tower, and we saw that there's like actual rooms where people have lived in the Eiffel Tower. And so I thought, oh my God, Claris could completely have a studio here. Anyway, so that was the inspiration for it. So that one's coming out later. So a few other bits and pieces, but they're my two kind of main books that are literally being printed right now. So they'll be out then.
Oh my gosh,
we cannot wait to pick up both of those.
I can't wait to learn all about the emotions of those fashion colors.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds so interesting.
There's so much psychology behind color, especially
there is.
associated with a certain brand. I feel like that would be so interesting to read about. I cannot wait
oh my gosh,
for that to come out.
Amazing. And where can our audience find you if they want to keep up and stay tuned for your upcoming releases?
So everything's really on my website, meganhess.com. That's where kind of all the books are, and there's links to, if you're in America, it'll take you to probably Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever they're sold, mainly in America. So every country, it kind of redirects you. So yeah, everything's mainly on my website, and then on my Instagram as well. I kind of update with different things that are happening. But I have a newsletter as well on my website, and that, if you sign up to, all my kind of early announcements on everything happens on that. So if there's a new project, a new book, or a book signing, or an event of some sort, that's where we kind of first announce it, and then it'll later get announced on my Instagram. So yeah, that's where you find me.
Fantastic. And those will all be linked in the show notes so that anyone who wants to check them out has super fast and easy access.
Exactly. And if you're ever coming to Calgary, make sure to let us know.
For a book
we'll
signing.
Be happy to come and get a book signed.
I'd love to get to Calgary. That would be amazing. Hopefully I do.
Yes, definitely. We'll stay tuned. We'll follow all the newsletters and everything. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to speak with you. This has been so amazing.
Well, I think you two are amazing, and I appreciate that you had me on today. And I know that the two of you are just going to be doing even more incredible things in the future. I can just tell. So I'm very, very grateful to chat with you, and it was really nice.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Pack Your Happiness, and thank you so much to Megan for joining us today.
Yes, it was such an honor and such a pleasure to speak with her. She's so inspiring, and just being in her presence and learning about her work is just such an inspiration. Anastasia, what's your biggest takeaway of today?
I think my biggest takeaway was that, the faster that you start to fail is just even better, because you can just get it over with and start to, get the ball rolling, get that inertia over with. And failure takes you out of that comfort zone, and that pushes you so that you can actually become a better illustrator, or a better soccer player, or a better student, or better at whatever you want to do. What about you, Mercedes?
I love that so much, and one of my biggest takeaways from Megan today is the importance of finding your own creative voice simply through trial and error. Don't let other people's critique affect your work too much. Of course, take out the little golden tidbits here and there of their criticism and feedbacks, but also just let yourself evolve and stick to your true self in whatever it may be, creative or not creative.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review from wherever you're listening. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it.
Also, be sure to join our happiness family. We really appreciate it. It's totally free, and you can do that by following this podcast on whatever podcast listening platform you are on now. See you next time.